everyone and welcome to Burn Your Books, Open Your Mind. I am your friend and host BYBOYM and you are watching Foundation for NEET. In our journey of understanding life processes, we are now on the verge of completing digestion and absorption. Today we are going to understand how food and other substances are absorbed in the body. We saw in the last video how food composed of macromolecules like carbohydrates, protein, lipids and nucleic acids is broken down or digested into simpler compounds such as monosaccharides, amino acids, glycerol, fatty acids and nucleotides. But why are macromolecules digested into smaller molecules? The answer lies in the fact that they need to be absorbed. So the answer is absorption. But what is absorption? Let us find out. Absorption of food is the process by which end products of digestion pass through the intestinal mucosa into the blood or lymph. Other than the products of digestion, water and electrolytes are also absorbed. What are the end products of digestion? You may remember it from the last video that the end products of digestion are the carbohydrates are broken down into monosaccharides such as glucose, fructose and galactose. Proteins are broken down into amino acids. Fats are broken down into fatty acids and glycerol, and nucleotides are broken down into sugars such as ribose and deoxyribose and nitrogenous bases. So there are two types of transport that happens across the cell membrane. Number one, where no energy is spent by the cell to transport a molecule. Such a transport is called passive transport. Number two, where energy needs to be spent by the cell in order to transport a molecule across the cell membrane. Such a transport is called as active transport. The absorption of different types of molecules is carried out by both active as well as passive transport mechanisms. So how do you determine whether a molecule is going to be transported by active or passive transport? Since the lipid bilayer is non-polar in nature, molecules that are polar in nature cannot move across the plasma membrane on their own, and the cell needs to spend energy in order to do that. Can you tell us the name of the energy currency of cell that you studied in class 9? Write your answer in the comment section below. Molecules transported by simple diffusion are a small amount of glucose, some amino acids, some electrolytes such as chloride ions. Molecules transported by facilitated transport are fructose, some amino acids. Molecules transported by active transport against their concentration gradient are amino acids, small peptides, glucose, some vitamins and sodium ions. So this was all about these molecules. What about water? Water is transported based upon the osmotic gradient. That means water will move from its higher concentration to lower concentration. Now before understanding how fats are transported, let us first look at structural adaptations in the small intestine. The small intestine has the following structural adaptations to increase the surface area for absorption. Number one, the small intestine is very long, approximately 6 to 7 meters long. The inner surface of the small intestine exposed to the lumen has about 4 million finger-like foldings called villi. The villi are richly supplied with a network of blood vessels and a large lymph vessel at its core. The lymph vessel at its core is known as the lacteal. Now if we look at the epithelial cells that line your villi, then you will see that each epithelial cell of the villus possesses extension of the plasma membrane called as microvilli. So what are microvilli? Microvilli are extensions of the plasma membrane of brush border epithelial cells that line your intestinal mucosa. So basically you have finger-like foldings which are known as villi, and on the epithelial cells of villi you have cytoplasmic extensions of the plasma membrane that are known as microvilli. So now the question comes, how is fat absorbed? How does fat goes across the plasma membrane? So fatty acids and glycerol are non-polar molecules that are insoluble and cannot be absorbed as such in blood. Do you remember like dissolves like? If not, check the link in the description for the previous video where we explained how fats are broken down by bile salts. So coming back, like dissolves like refers to the fact that polar compounds dissolve only in polar solvents and non-polar compounds dissolve only in non-polar solvents. Since water is a polar solvent, Lipids are non-polar. Lipids form micelles in water rather than being dissolved. So how is fat transported? Fats are first incorporated into small droplets called micelles, which move into the intestinal mucosa. There they are reformed into small protein-coated fat globules called chylomicrons, and are then transported into large lymph vessels present in the core of each villus known as the lacteal. So lacteals ultimately release the absorbed nutrients back into the bloodstream. Now let's look at the summary of absorption in different parts of the digestive system. So what is absorbed in your mouth? Certain drugs that are coming in contact with the mucosa of the mouth and lower side of tongue are absorbed into the capillaries that are lining these regions. For example, a recreational drug known as LSD is commonly taken by this route. Now what is absorbed by your stomach? Water, simple sugars and alcohol is absorbed by your stomach. What is absorbed by your small intestine? The products of digestion such as glucose, fructose, fatty acids, glycerol and amino acids. And what is absorbed in your large intestine? Water is reabsorbed, some minerals and drugs again. Yes, there is a route of administration known as rectal administration in which drugs are pushed up the anus and are absorbed by the walls of the rectum. We discussed in the video Human Alimentary Canal that the modes of nutrition in human beings are heterotrophic and holozoic. The 5 stages of holozoic mode of nutrition are: first, ingestion, that is taking in the food through the mouth. Number 2, digestion, breaking down food particles into smaller absorbable molecules. Number 3, absorption, that we discussed in this video. Number 4, assimilation, which is the utilization of the absorbed compounds for energy production, building and repair. Number 5th and last is egestion, which is the removal of waste material. In the case of humans, we are more familiar with the term defecation. The unabsorbed, undigested material in the large intestine upon removal of water solidifies into fecal matter in the rectum and initiates a neural reflex causing an urge or desire to remove the waste. Defecation is the egestion of feces to the outside through the anal opening and is a voluntary process carried out by a mass peristaltic movement. This brings us to our next segment, Do You Know? The first point in Do You Know is the folds of the intestine, villi and microvilli together have a surface area of 200 to 300 meters square. Imagine a tennis court. This enormous surface area is an example of evolutionary adaptation. And the last point is it takes around 12 to 24 hours for food material to travel the entire length of your colon. If you like our content, give your thumbs up, and if you are new to our channel, hit the bell button and subscribe. That's all in the video. See you in the next video, guys. Thanks for your time. You are watching Burn Your Books, Open Your Mind.